In 2004, a new mayor was elected. He was shocked to learn that no salaries had been paid for 3 months. The city was just about to self-destruct. It was in a terminal stage. And so he sought the advice of Pastor Gisela. And so she said to him, well, you need to start by confessing the sins of the city since its foundation. You need to seek forgiveness and reconciliation with God.
Wow.
And so the mayor prayed for over an hour. And within 5 days, the situation in the city was reversed and it started on the upkeep. And of course, that sort of news gets out. So the mayor then has a public ceremony in which he hands the keys of the city over to Jesus. In more than 100 other cities, they did the same thing.
Wow.
By 2011, drug trafficking was in decline. Police forces were being cleaned up. Evil powers were being expelled. Old covenants of spiritual significance from the past were being revoked. Uruguay was South America's most secular city. By 1998, Protestant missionaries, evangelicals, Pentecostals, whomever, they'd been there for 150 years, and the best they could do was one church a year. That was 150 churches. And then they started to implement some of these principles. Within the next 2 years, they planted, just 2 years, not 150, they planted another 150 churches. And the number of Christians in Uruguay went from 1% to 5% of the population. During the same time, a similar movement was undertaken in Peru with similar outcomes, except they went from 1% to 10%. In New Delhi, in India, where of course we would accept there's a lot of spiritual activity going on in a place like that. In a 3-year period, they'd been able to start 29 new churches. But then they took to these sort of things that I'm talking about, and in the next couple of years, again for them, the next 2 years, they planted 181 churches.
Wow. Praise God.
Over in South Africa, Peter Sekonyane is based in Orange Farm, which is 50 kilometers south of Johannesburg. And Peter was a concrete engineer who'd been called to be an evangelist. But now he was in strife because nothing much was happening. His ministry wasn't very fruitful. He decided he'd go back to be an engineer once more and cement himself in cement. But before he took his final step, he hired a hotel room to have a 3-day retreat with the Lord, to pray and to fast. And instead of the Lord blessing him, the first thing that happened was the Lord rebuked him. Because he's spending so much time furiously busy with the work that he didn't have any time to spend with the Lord. So he was rebuked. And what he was shown was that prayerless pastors were producing prayerless congregations. And so he started all over again. And he started out by recommencing everything on a foundation of prayer. In the next 6 years, he established 7,800 prayer cells.
Wow.
He organized 24/7 prayer over the region in which he was operating, and they were specifically instructed in how to confront the powers of darkness. And 190 witch doctors came to the Lord.
Wow. Praise God.
But not only that, Peter saw 840,000 people come into the kingdom of God in that same 6-year period.
Hallelujah. Amazing.
Because he entered into the spiritual warfare aspect, trained others to enter there as well. But I want to finish with this story because I probably spent more time literally in this one than other places around the world. And this is over in Guatemala. Guatemala was a Mayan, that's where the Mayan civilization was headquartered there in Central America, until in the 15th century the Spanish conquistadors came. As you listen to this story, I want you to run a parallel through your mind of what is happening here in Australia and with our first peoples, our indigenous peoples, and how we're attempting to solve their problems. So The Spanish conquistadors arrived in the New World